Hi there, welcome to Couchbase Coding with Matthew Groves. This is a 10-minute slice of my day as a developer advocate, live every day. Check out old episodes on YouTube, the link's up there, and email me any tweet, comments, questions, ideas that you have. Alright, so I'm going through some of the upcoming sneak peek stuff with Couchbase Connect New York, coming up on May 9th and 10th. Jam-packed full of Couchbase stuff from our engineers, but also our customers and partners. And remember, no stream this Friday. I'll be at the Stir Trek conference in Columbus, Ohio. I think I need to change my resolution. While I'm doing that, let me also just say that I'm trying something different today. I'm trying something called Restream, and it's supposed to send the stream out to both Twitch and YouTube at the same time, and also connect the chat to each other. So I'm not sure how well that's working. So if you are watching on YouTube or you're watching on Twitch, please write a message into the chat just so I know that you're seeing what's going on and that everything's going okay. Okay, now with that in mind, what I want to talk about today is actually a session that's going to be at Couchbase Connect New York called the Couchbase Data Platform, What's New in Couchbase 5.5. And this is going to be presented, I believe, by Chin Hong, who is one of the product managers here at Couchbase. It's going to talk about some of the key innovations released in Couchbase Server. That was back in October, and also the latest capabilities in Couchbase Server 5.5, which is currently in beta. That's a lot of stuff to cover in one session. It's going to be a very, very quick, deep session, or sorry, very, very quick, broad session on all the Couchbase features and stuff. But I thought I would go through some of those things and just riff on them and maybe show some of them to you in Couchbase itself. All right, so I'm at this page here called the What's New page, and this is on the Couchbase Server 5.0 portion of the documentation. It's just showing you what's new in Couchbase 5, and it was a pretty big change from Couchbase 4 to Couchbase 5, and one of the main things is actually the role-based access control, or RBAC, that was added as a security model to Couchbase. So previously with Couchbase, when you create a bucket, you would go in and give it a bucket name, and you could also specify a password for the bucket. But as you can see right here, there's no longer a way to specify a password at the bucket level. I'm just checking at the chat here. Looking fancy today, Matt Groves. Okay, so it looks like seeing me on Twitch. That's good. Yeah, the tie and the shirt. Don't panic. I'm actually going to my son's violin concert tonight, so I don't normally dress like this at home. Well, sometimes though, it's nice to dress up a little bit. Okay, but anyway, you don't specify a password at the bucket anymore in Couchbase 5. So what you do instead is you go to the Security tab here, and you can actually create users. And you can actually create actual Couchbase users now. So these are Couchbase users that are stored in Couchbase. You give them their own password, and you can also specify specific roles you want them to have. At the bucket level, or at the operation level, you can say, oh, you can only run a select query and you can only read data, for instance. All right, and you can see right here that it shows exactly the permissions that this user has. So when you connect to Couchbase via SDK or some other client, you're going to have to use this username and password to authenticate. You can no longer use a password with a password on a bucket. And you can no longer have buckets without passwords, which is the biggest improvement I see, is that it really hardens up the security a little bit. Okay, so that's RBAC. That's a cool thing. Full text search, I've talked about that at least twice now in recent streams. Nickel I've mentioned recently as well. RBAC, of course, for Nickel. So when you add RBAC, you need to add some Nickel stuff for that. Nickel features for that. Curl was added in 5, which is, in Nickel anyway, in 5, which allows you to call out to other HTTP or REST services, which can be very handy for things like Google API, Yahoo API. As I mentioned in a previous stream, like a Twilio would be useful if you're going to use curl, but that was within eventing, which we'll get to in a second here. Profiling and monitoring, some cool stuff there to monitor your queries to see how they're doing. Some Nickel performance improvements. I might touch on these in a stream later this week. Some of the cool stuff that's been added there. The new Plasma storage engine, which I'll mention here in a second, but that is a new engine for the key value store part of Couchbase, which is utilized by a lot of services. Faster failover is added, so I haven't really mentioned failover, I don't think, yet, so let's go to that. If we go to settings here on our cluster, and let's go to, let's see, Where is that at? Advanced query settings. Let's see. Software, node availability. Okay, yeah. So under node availability here, I think they changed this around in 5.5, but you can do what's called an auto failover. So in a Couchbase cluster is several machines all talking to each other, all cooperating together. But sometimes a machine will go down. It's just an inevitability. Something will break or someone will trip over a power cord. Hopefully it doesn't happen very often. But if it does happen, then the rest of the nodes in the cluster can pick up the slack. And what they have to do is, one way you can do this is you can enable automatic failover. Instead of having to manually go in and say, okay, this node has failed, it'll automatically detect that a node is down. And it will do this by coming to an agreement after a certain number of seconds. And the number of seconds actually has been lowered, I think, to, 5 seconds is now the minimum time. So that's faster than it was in previous versions. And what happens in a failover is that that node will be marked as failed, and all the data on there will be considered just lost. And then the replicas that are on the other nodes that are still up, they'll be promoted to active. So whenever you replicate data, that's why you want to replicate it, is so that you can recover from a failover like this. So that's new, the faster failover. Ephemeral buckets, and I think this ties into the new Plasma storage engine. So if you go to buckets here and create a new bucket, I'm going to call this memory only. You'll see why in a second. And give this a memory quota, 256. Notice these bucket types down here. Previously I could select Couchbase, which is the default, memcached, which is there for backwards compatibility reasons. This new one is ephemeral. It's the ephemeral bucket, and ephemeral means that the data is only going to be stored in RAM. It's not going to be persisted to disk. So there's no disk access entering into the equation if you're going to use an ephemeral bucket. And that's different than Couchbase bucket because Couchbase is going to write data to disk. As it's going to write to memory first, but it's going to write it to disk asynchronously. Ephemeral is just memory only. So a couple of things here. This is going to be way, way faster. It's not going to worry about disk access times and things like that. But it is going to live only in memory. So if the node goes down, then anything that's in that memory is lost. But fortunately with ephemeral, unlike memcached, I believe, with ephemeral, you can have data replicated to other nodes in the cluster, but again, only in memory. I believe that's how it works. And so what happens if you run out of memory? Well, then you can say, all right, we can either have no ejection is one option, which just says it's going to reject any new data that comes in. So you get an error if you're out of memory. Or you can have this NRU ejection, which is going to kick data out of RAM once it's reached the quota. It's going to remove older data. And so you're going to lose older data as you come out of RAM. So this ephemeral bucket is great for caching use cases or other situations where you don't want to have to worry about a lot of disk access time on your servers, or you don't want to have a large disk, things like that. There's lots of use cases for that. I would say use Couchbase or ephemeral. Memcached, I'd only use that for backwards compatibility reasons. I wouldn't start a new memcached project, for instance, with Couchbase anyway. Okay, what else? So I haven't even finished 5.0 yet. I'm almost running out of time. Let's zoom ahead here to 5.1, which was a minor release. One of the major things was that Debian 9 support was added in 5.1, so that's cool. Some other minor adjustments there. In 5.5, I've talked about some of these things already. ANSI joins, the eventing service, which actually has the Couchbase functions, is the first offering under the eventing service. And that's where I was talking about curl earlier. Couchbase Analytics, you're going to hear a lot more about this year. It involves the no ETL. There's actually going to be a session at Couchbase Connect. So let me just move this promo over here. Couchbase Connect is going to have a session on Couchbase Analytics, at least one, called No ETL, I believe. And the idea here is that you want to run analytics queries. Typically in the past, you'd have to set up an ETL to move data off your operational store into some analytics store. With Couchbase Analytics, that can all be done for you. No ETL necessary. It will update the data as it comes in, give you a heavily indexed version of it that you can run your more complex analytical queries on. And so that's a really nice, smooth feature. So you want to check that out. Come to Couchbase Connect New York, May 9th through 10th, 2018. You can register now at the link at the bottom of the screen. And use that code, DevAdvocacyCC18, and you'll get free admission to the main conference. What more could you ask for? A free day full of great technical content. You get to meet a lot of other great developers like you, Couchbase engineers, Couchbase customers, and partners. And it's going to be a great event. So check it out. Sign up there. Use that code. That's it today. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.